Hi, my name is Maximilian Giel. I'm an outdoor and adventure photographer, and good to see you again. To this video I will take you a little bit to an introduction into photography, for sure more focused on the landscape photography, but I think there are a lot of facts that you will that will be helpful for any kind of photography. So let's go. So first we're gonna talk about gear, and I'm using a Canon EOS RP with the 15 to 35 RF lens, and this is for me right now a perfect setup for landscape photography and for outdoor and adventure photography. It's an f2.8 lens, which means it's pretty good in low light. The same like the Canon EOS RP, which basically is a Canon EOS 6D Mark II in a small case. And that's really interesting for me, because as you can see right now, I'm doing a lot of uphill walking and I got to carry it. So for me that's a big point why I choose the camera, and I'll show you some recent results with this one. So when we're talking about cameras, and you think like, oh, I want to do much better photos, I need to buy a new camera. So I think there's one big fact. In terms of photography, I don't think that there's a big difference between the cameras from 5 years ago to today. And the biggest improvement you'll get if you buy better glass. And so if you have already a camera with interchangeable lenses, I would highly recommend to think about buying new glass and have a look how the pictures look like afterwards. But right now I think we have a look down there, down to Kandersteg. Super beautiful. By the way, I'm on my way to a really classic spot, the Öschinensee. I've been there already this year, but we're gonna do a tour right on the corner tomorrow there, and I just needed some fresh air after a long week of working, so I went here. And yeah, I'll show you some footage later how this looks for sunset, but I think we just continue talking about photography. We've been talking about the cameras, and I think the first thing what you should answer yourself what you want to do. Are you like just doing some snaps? Do you want to do really good astrophotography, wedding photography, sports photography, wildlife photography? All these kind of things really affect the gear to choose. And so if you just like want a camera in the mountains, and you want to still have a good flexibility and good pictures as well. I would recommend, and I got the camera as well, a Sony RX100 Mark VI, for example. It's not the cheapest one, but with a zoom range up to 200 millimeters, it's really cool. Can do like telephotos, get a pretty wide angle with 24, so that's a really good tool for that. If you say you want to do more astrophotography or low light photography, then you'll need probably a camera which is really good in low light. And the first thing what you need to know is the more megapixels the camera has, the worse it's in low light, because there are more pixels, there's more opportunity of this grisly look, and so probably the best low light camera on the market is the Sony A7S III, I think, is released now, and this one has 12 megapixels. So I think this is one fact that you should really know when buying a camera. It's not about megapixels. Megapixels, they are interesting in certain situations. When you're working for big clients and print your work big, like a building, like a house, you will need those 40, 50, 60 megapixels. Totally agree. But if you print your pictures for yourself, or just for small magazines, or just for social media, you will be fine with 12 megapixels, and 20 will be totally enough. So the key fact what I'm telling you is, yeah, think about what you want to shoot, what you want to do, and then buy the gear. And don't buy just the biggest and best camera if you don't need it. Because if you're shooting just landscape, you won't care about how many pictures in a second the camera shoots. But when I'm shooting athletes, or when I'm shooting also animals, I need a lot of pictures within a short amount of time, because I just want to have this one single moment where everything is perfect. Movement, the expression, the image. So then it makes sense to have a camera with a high rate of serial images. And yeah, as you can see, it's probably more complex than you thought, but yeah, I just wanted to introduce you a little bit. And I think next we're gonna talk about basics of shooting techniques. And yeah, I think we're gonna do this a little bit more up, because it's pretty tough to talk and to walk. So now it's a little bit flat here, so I think you can talk a little bit better. And when we talk about shooting, there are 3 parameters that you can choose and change for a photo. So that's simple. And the first is the ISO. And the ISO determines how reactive the sensor is to light. The lower, the more light is needed that you see something on the image. The higher, the less light is needed to see something. You can push them up. Usually the lowest value is 100. In some cameras it's 50. And with this, your picture will be mostly the best one in terms of playing with the shadows in the edit and playing with the highlights. And the higher you go, just the more pixels you're gonna see on the image. It will then depend what kind of image you're shooting, if it matters or it doesn't. But that's something for a future tutorial about low light and astro night photography, which is on my list, but I'm not sure when I do it, but I'll do one. And you'll see that if you subscribe to this channel. I'll tell you quite a bit more tricks. So let's go on. The next one that we can change is basically the shutter speed. And the shutter speed means how long you let light into the camera. And this affects the image in some different ways. Basically, if you look at water and you make a longer shutter speed, like 1/5 of a second, the water will flow. It will be not sharp, it will be blurred, and you also can use this effect. The other thing is, from a certain amount of time of the shutter speed, you will have hard times to get a sharp image if you're shooting without a tripod. And it depends if you got stabilization inside of the camera and in the lens, but if you don't have any stabilization, for me, I can shoot maybe 1/15 of a second with the hand, and with a stabilizer in the camera and also in the lens, maybe I can do like 1/4 of a second. And afterwards I'll need a tripod if I want a sharp image. You can also work with blurry images as a kind of art, but most photographers prefer sharp images. So that's something that you actually need to know about the shutter speed. And if you want to have a really crisp image, there's a simple rule about the shutter speed, and this rule says that the shutter speed should be the double of the focal length of the lens. So if I'm shooting at 15 millimeters, the lowest shutter speed without a tripod should be 1/30 of a second. And if I'm shooting at 200 millimeters, I should use a shutter speed which is at least 1/400 of a second to get a sharp image. So that's a simple but good rule which might help you. Yeah, I think that's it in terms of the shutter speed. And last but not least, we'll talk about the f-stop. The f-stop is like in the eye, the iris, which can be small or far open. The lower the amount of the f-stop is on the camera, like f2.8, the wider this ring is open. And the higher the amount of this, the more this ring is closed. And this affects actually the image quite a lot. When I'm shooting with a low f-stop, like f2.8 or f1.4, I'll get a nice bokeh, which means I have one thing sharp and the rest is blurred. The other thing is, when I'm shooting a landscape photo with a low f-stop, I will maybe have a problem, depending on the lens you use, with the sharpness on the edges of the image. So that's it. If we go to the opposite, it's basically like that if we use the highest amount of f-stop, like f22 or whatever it is on your lens, you will have a problem with vignetting. So it's getting darker on the side of the image, and you can correct this for sure in post, but you should actually think about that while taking the photo. And the last tip is zoom lenses like this one, like the 15-35 are usually the sharpest at f8. So keep that in mind before taking the snap, because it will affect your image quite a lot. And yeah, I think that's the basics for shooting, and the parameters you can change. And so I think it's time to show you the beauty of Öschinensee. We'll see the lake in about 2 minutes. Up there, the white one is the Blümlies Alphorn, which I climbed not too long ago. If you haven't seen the video already, check that out. I'll link that up there. And yeah, it's just probably one of the best known places in Switzerland. And I actually been here the first time this year, even though I'm living here in Switzerland since more than 8 years right now. And yeah, I understand why people come here. It's truly amazing. It feels like a little bit of Norway here. It's yeah, a lake, deep blue, in the middle of really steep rock walls, and it's definitely worth a visit. But I don't recommend to go here on the weekend or to go here during the day. That's my total recommendation. Try to be here early, or as in my case, be late. And now let's see what we can get. So now we are here at the lake, super beautiful with the glow up there, and there are some boats, and I'll try to shoot a nice image with the boats in front. And yeah, let's see how this looks. Now we are here at the end of the lake, and there are just 2 people, so not too much. So I think it's time to get a drone up and shoot some sweet aerials from high up there, with the last tip of light. And yeah, I'll show you the results and the movies, and yeah, let's see what we get. Oh, and in general, well, I mentioned that I'm gonna take the drone. Always check before if you're allowed to fly. When you bring it, check the local regulations, if you need insurance, whatever. And yeah, my personal recommendation is not to fly anywhere where are people around. Yeah, anybody should actually choose this on its own, but to be honest, everyone is leaving its trash everywhere where they sleep, and that's why we are not really allowed to sleep somewhere. Also in Switzerland it's getting more and more complicated, and it's the same thing with the drones. People fly with the fucking drones straight in front of people, over their heads and whatsoever, and it's totally clear and understandable that it's getting harder and harder to fly a drone because of those idiots. Sorry for the term. So yeah, just want to mention that. So now I'm on my way back from the spot where I flew the drone. You saw the images and the videos, and I hope you could learn a little bit from me from this video. And If you got any questions or like, yeah, could you explain this a little bit more, just write it down in the comments, would be really great. If you liked the video, put a thumbs up, would also really cool. And subscribe to this channel if you want to stay updated for more tips, tricks, for a lot of different things. And yeah, these words say goodbye, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.